to think about. But as an artist, I believe what you think about, you bring about. I put affirmations on the wall. I think I'm a good artist. I'm the best artist. I just look at it for myself, give me confidence. Also, um, you cannot stop learning. You can't stop learning. Because once you do that, you start getting stale. And flowing water never goes stale. You gotta always want to learn. Talk to different artists, all kinds of different people. You get all the information you can find. I read all the books I can find. Scott McCloud, Understanding Comics, Will Eisner's manuscripts, whatever I can get my hands on to build my knowledge up about what I'm doing. Because I guess it helps in the long term.
In life, we're faced with trials and tribulations in which our minds simply can't handle or manage our emotions in a fairly regulated manner. We typically escape via diving into our digital world of movies, TV shows, video games, or social media, or we exhibit physical forms by overeating, shopping, substance abuse, or throwing ourselves into the excessive and intensive exercise. For example, gym bros. After they have a really nasty breakup with, or not even a nasty breakup, it's a made up scenario of them getting cucked and being a loser in their own fantasy, and then they decide to go to the gym. I don't know why that's a thing. But another common way in which we portray escapism is through mental and creative means, via daydreaming, reading fantasy, or just any other form of creative or expressive art in which our minds are able to fully relieve itself from the psychological pain. And that's all fine and dandy, but like everything else in this world, there are limits. When it comes to young Hannah Washington, an 8-year-old girl living in Chicago, you can only imagine the limits that would exceed the fragile mind of a young child. And it's one of those comics you might have read as a kid and really felt like you were getting your hands on something that was a bit more mature or just a little raunchier than you would have expected from a comic book if you already know about Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Avengers, or Hulk, or whatever the case may be. But for the time, it was considered a spicy read for a teenager. She came to be within the mind of Mario Gully in 1996 within the walls of the county jail in Florida for an assault charge. In multiple interviews, Gully had expressed great regret for his actions and all of his decisions that led him to said cell, and he lived in that for a full year. And up until early in his sentence, on one monotonous, depressing morning, Gully was looking through barred windows and he had noticed a singular ant crawling in from the windowsill. And he said to himself, man, I wish I were an ant, but I can crawl right out of this place and start my life all over.
Mario Gully, the artist and creator of Ant.
Excellent, excellent. And what led you guys to create Ant? What was the inspiration?
Well, what happened was in 1996, I got convicted of attempted armed robbery. When I was locked up, a little ant came in. Attempted. Little ant came in from the jail cell, and I said to myself, I would give my life to be that ant so I could escape and get out. Well, then I just started to draw and develop and stuff, and in jail, you have a trade, you can get a rack of cookies. So I was drawing on envelopes to get cookies and stuff, and I just kind of built a small reputation. And it built me the confidence to send out to comic book companies like Marvel, DC, Image Comics and stuff. And, 10 years later, there she is.
So with the backstory laid out for Ant and Mario Gully, now we can actually get into the actual comic of Ant. And the story is told by 8-year-old Hannah Washington, a shy, bully, but extraordinarily bright young girl who has a loving father named Danny Big Daddy Washington. Yes, that is his name. And yes, he is bald. Now Danny, as a single father, is taking Hannah to her first day of 4th grade, and like most children, she has jitters and nervousness coursing through her veins. Father does what any good father does and tries to reassure her of herself, build her confidence back up, and just trying to instill a strong foundation within herself so that she won't feel so alone and isolated when she's away from him. But that peaceful and loving car ride is cut short when they're pulled over by Chicago PD, and Danny is subsequently arrested and accused of a crime he didn't commit. We then follow this sequence of events written by Hannah within her journal, and let me just say, she definitely deserves to be in all gifted classes. I mean, the vocabulary of this 8-year-old is kind of astonishing, and the single fact that I don't know, maybe I'm just out of touch, or maybe I can't remember what I was writing and reading like when I was 8 years old, but her penmanship and vocabulary are leagues above the rest of her classmates, I'll tell you that much. As a matter of fact, go to your little brother or sister or cousin or niece or nephew and see what type of level of reading and writing them little niggas are on. And I guarantee you they're not going to be like Lil Hannah in this scenario. The segment in which Danny is arrested and Hannah's having to wait in the police station reflects Mario's Gully's initial frustrations of being a black man behind bars. Albeit he did commit the crime, but he's doing the time. But anybody who commits a crime, whether it be of some sort of something small or minor, they can definitely tell in great detail and also relate to the paneling and expressions on Danny's face. Hannah's forlorn suffering, the silhouetted faces of the officers, detainees, and the stark gray drabness of it all. Whether it be by, you do the crime, you do the time, or just by an unfair hand. It's something that can be seen within Gully's work, that he greatly wants to emphasize what that feeling is like. And especially in this case, for Danny, who has been accused of a crime he didn't commit, it makes it all the more worse. A real portal into the lives of those who are truly suffering at the hands of an unjust justice system. The humiliation, the shame, and the general uneasy feeling that fills the room. It's here that Hannah describes to us the agonizing feeling of powerlessness when the person she loves is treated like an unchanging monster. It's here that Gully continues to show his regret and his frustration and a little bit of a glimpse into the world that he was once in. But moving on, even as Hannah is being taken to school by an officer, she's met with an immediate indifference by her fellow students. The very same thing that she was afraid of on the car ride when she was talking to her father. And not only is she met with this by her classmates, there's also a false sense of understanding from her principal, and that makes it just makes it worse. All of this turmoil and stress and trauma inflicted upon this 8-year-old, it's here we finally see her creation come to life. Her grief, her regret, her trauma, and the superheroine who could take it all and become the greatest superhero who had ever lived, so that things like this don't ever happen to anyone else. This is the birth of Ant. Now, this is actually a pretty solid start. It delivers onto the viewer a bit of a raunchy but golden call to action for a hero to come in and make her claim as the best to ever do it, and the best of all of us. But that's kind of the issue. There isn't that. Maybe on a small scale in which Hannah is able to confront her trauma and regain her memories and retake her place in reality, but then we run into the editorial and continuity problems. Right. Sorry, spoiler alert. So the first volume from Arcana Studios, Hannah is trying to solve the mystery of her dad's accused case because they're trying to give him the electric chair, and her mom, who is like separated from Danny, Big Daddy Washington, her boyfriend is the son of the CEO of the boss of Danny, who works at a construction site. He's being framed for his murder. So, with that, you could take that with a, grain of salt. And Ant's not real at this point. Back to the script that I forgot to write that in there. Originally, Ant was released under Arcana Studios and ran for 4 issues, but it was then picked up by Image Comics, where it continued in Volume 2, where then Gully began to tell his story, and unfortunately it was kind of placed in a very awkward and weird position because there was gaps in the story. It was told to be a sort of recollection of filling in past memory gaps that Hannah was experiencing now that she's a grown adult, and trying to insert this story within the continuity of Image Comics at the time, which involved Spawn, the Omega 1 team, and Savage Dragon, all around 2004, 2007. But it was just a big mess, to say the least. At the end of Volume 2, Gully was a bit satisfied or a bit unfulfilled, or however which way you want to describe it. He felt finished with Ant's story at the end of its 8-issue run, so much so that he decided to try his hand under Big City Comics with Ant Unleashed, which is a bit more of a mature and grittier version of Ant's story, kind of in between. I can't tell if it's in between or after Volume 2, but regardless, it was only published for 3 issues with a subsequent cancellation of the rest of the 6-issue run. But she did get an appearance in Omega 1, again, another comic where she tried to get inserted in there. And by 2012, Gully decided to sell Ant to Eric Larson, the creator of Savage Dragon. And for a while, there was nothing being done with her. There was almost no news, no anything, and 14 years later, Ant was finally able to finish her story. Volume 2 was continued after a jarring cliffhanger back in 2007, and in 2021, Larson was able to fully weave together a coherent timeline, give us a proper resolution to Volume 2, and throw us into Volume 4 as his most recent entry to Ant. Reading it, it's a solid start to get Ant off the ground and running, but to me personally,
it's not enough.
There's too many plot holes, inconsistent writing, and the 14-year-long gap waiting to see her story be completed. The initial start was just, or I guess end of volume. Start, end? It's bland. It's plain, and it's not as appetizing as it could be. And it's not a dig or attack at Larson as a writer or creator, but it feels like he's simmering on something to fully knock it out the park, but it's just not there yet. But I can say that I do like the position that Ant is in, because now it could definitely be something that could put it on the scale of Spawn, Savage Dragon, and even Invincible in terms of like more of a grittier, mature, teen-rated story that's not as cookie cutter as you would have it for a DC or a Marvel or Geronimo Stilton comic book or graphic novel or whichever way you want to go. And because of this, I decided to do more research and actual deep dive analysis at a deep dive analysis of what Ant is. And at the end of the 6-issue run, or excuse me, the 8, was it 8 or 6? Am I stupid? At the end of the 6-issue run of Ant 2021, it leaves me with enough hope for me and any other scattered Ant fans for what's to come. Hannah is a traumatized girl, respectfully and rightfully so. Her dad's past catches up with him despite him making changes to better his family's lives, to ensure that he does right by the neighbors and others around him, to being brutally taken away, and for what? Because he dared to go against the system that aimed to replace him, to forego any morals or humanity, for the sake of all for the sake of power and control. And his final act, he decides to deliver unto a gift, or burden, depending on who you ask, of bringing Hannah's dream to life, to create a hard shell to protect herself on the inside, like an M&M, to become what she's always dreamt to be, the savior of the innocent, the answer to all the world's problems. She became Ant. 2021 revival of Ant ends with an altercation in which she has to recruit Spawn and Savage Dragon to apprehend Alzaya Stone, a superpowered religious zealot hellbent on giving people powers for world domination. That part was a little sketchy. It threatens the balance of the universe, or something that she said, or the world. In this run, Larson was able to piece together a solid, coherent timeline and backstory, and was able to find a way to make Spawn and Savage Dragon and have her intertwine with the rest of the Image Comics universe, or whatever universe is called. But it's just not enough there. At its core, Ant possesses a unique sense of potential and value within the series that it could easily skyrocket in. She wants to be the greatest hero of all time, and she has a very strong sense of justice, a strong sense of identity. She has the tragic backstory. She has a certain level of uniqueness, and not to mention, she is a young black woman of early 20s who wants to be a hero. Given the state of the world now and the times we live in, how could that not be a more like, how could she not fail? How could she fail? You know, it delivers a sense of maturity that people are going to enjoy, like maturity and realism, like Invincible, even though I can't stand Mark Grayson with a C because he doesn't deserve a K, or the US. She's an insect-based hero, which, I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed the trend, but there's Kamen Rider, Spider-Man. Hey, I'm just saying, insect-based heroes kind of go crazy when it comes to fighting for justice and human life. You know what I mean? Yeah. But on a grander sense, even from a business or sales perspective, given the right opportunity, the proper storyline, the proper artwork, and a proper introduction, a proper introduction and a proper revival to make Ant what it needs to be, it can easily skyrocket and blow past Image's top 5 and launch it into superstardom. It can go beyond Transformers. It can even go beyond G.I. Joe, can't speak, and hopefully get a better TV show appraisal than Invincible, if done correctly. I can't stand Invincible. My hopes for the continuation of Ant specifically is that we get to highlight a new hero with a new perspective, with an interesting enough backstory that would put her on par with the likes of Spider-Man, possibly. I'm not saying this to dethrone my GOAT, but I am saying that it's especially more important, again, given the state of the world that we live in now. We have the United States going to war with an Arabic country because it was discovered that the rich and powerful of our country are in cahoots with a foreign asset, and they want to bully the rest of the world to their whims. I'm just saying, what better time to have a hero to call to action? Despite the complicated and shaky continuity issues, Ant can be a stark representation for the new, wild, and rebellious youth who have suffered greatly at the hands of oppressors and the systems and powers that be that lord over the rest of us. Even be a figure in which young women who follow into the same characterization as Hannah, they can see themselves within her, look up to the pages in awe and saying, she's just like me. Because the Ant outfit, you can't really tell who she is. You just know it's a woman or female presenting person. The powers, the tragic backstory, and the limitless potential and routes that the story could go. I don't want to see Ant turn into the next potential woman or potential man meme. Who better for seeing a trump card like Hannah Washington to shake up the world of comics and come out the gate swinging? This essay is kind of like a semi-structured rant to further my agenda to push a newer, unique character. A newer, unique, and like mostly unknown character. You know, a black woman in the world of fantasy to higher heights. Again, the potential for Ant. She could write. She could be up there. She could have her own crossover comic book with Spider. I feel like a character like her deserves it more so than Marcus Grayson. My bad. Mark with a C, Grayson. Not to mention, even from a personal standpoint, I've realized that not everyone was fortunate enough to be enamored and fall in love with these worlds and these characters and these stories that I have seen from my childhood, even well into my adulthood. And I feel like as a creative, it's my duty and my responsibility to open the gates, you know, to ensure the survival of this story or any story I come across that deserves the recognition, that deserves to see the light of day and to leave its mark on the world. Leave its mark on a world that's so easily consumed and blanketed in evil and darkness. It needs heroes. It needs people like you and me, people tired of suffering and crying and being unheard, of being silenced and forgotten. It needs heroes. Whether you're as big as a planet or you're as tiny as an ant.
Who a rich nigga?